What's up, guys? Time to show off another build that's going over to my buddy Pat. This was the third build for him. Took a little while to get it all together. He wanted a polished build, and as you know, I do not do many polish. So what we did, which got my new microfiber, so I've been wiping off my fingerprints the whole time because I only do the gloves as I'm building. And usually just with the movement, because everything else I can just kind of, most of my stuff's brushed. So we went with a 110 case. So 110 case has the small crown guards on the side. And since we were doing a bracelet on it, I wanted to get something that kind of stays as close as possible, but gives you movement on a case. So did a 110 polished case, just the standard milled crown on here. This is an actual steel dial, so it has a couple little pock marks in there, but we had actual steel. Actually, when I got it, it was pretty rusty, so I had to sand it down, clear coat it a bit, and then the wife painted. So we did the Steelers in black, and then obviously the logo we've got in yellow, red, and blue. And then clear coated over top of that. I've used these, I think, once or twice Cerakoted, since I don't use polish very often, on like an Iron Man build, but I have these, I had one of them. Kind of looks like a washer with a welded nut to it, and I thought that looked kind of fitting and flowing, but and polished as well. So it's on a tension ring, so you can spin it, whatever. To go with a more of a polished band, I went with a Beads of Rice, which is I've only done a couple times ever. Center through this is polished throughout. Steelers logo here engraved across the top. BVW there on the bottom. Low profile exhibition case back signed rotor. And that is your build, sir. Oh, and a white handset, full on white handset. So I thought that looked kind of cool with it to tie in yet another color with the Steelers. So you got your black, you got your white, you got your red, yellow, and blue, and then everything else done up in silver. So as I referenced, the bezel will turn left, it'll turn right. This is just a tension ring bezel. I put the tension as tight as I could. Thing is, I can't really pop it back off without like getting into the polish. So I did it as tight as I could and snapped it on there. Automatic mechanical, like all of them, so you can wind it, wear it, put it in a watch winder. But if it's dead, or you're not going to be very active, make sure you wind it just a little bit. And how you do it is you back the crown off the threads till you hear it and feel it clicking. At that point, you can wind. Going backwards doesn't do anything, but it's a lot easier to keep your fingers spacing and just go back and forth. If you do this for 4 or 5 seconds before you put it on, even if you're not very active, you'll keep time throughout the day. And if you do it for something closer to 15 seconds, you're going to max out your 31-hour power reserve. But if you do it less, that mix with the rotor movement there in the back should keep your time throughout the day, so long as you're slightly active. When you're happy with your winding, you'll pull it to the one and only click. You can now set your time. Does not have a hacking movement, so it's going to keep going. You also notice you got a wobble crown that deflects lateral pressure from going into the stem and into the movement. Okay, Google, what time is it?
It's 2:03 p.m.
2:03. You're good. Push it over, get it out of that time setting, and then wind it down. And that, sir, is your build. You'll have yourself a nice new white microfiber. This is the one that I used on your watch, but I'll wrap it in or get you a brand new one there. As with every build, it's going to come with matching beads. So, got a little bit of pop of color there for you. I didn't have a silver Steelers box. I had a brown Steelers box. My only Steelers box. Special edition box. It's going to come with watch cleaner. This is good on all glass and metal parts. So this watch as a whole. Some fine scratch remover to keep that acrylic glass perfectly perfect. If probably give you a second microfiber, because if you're gonna ever use any of this, you don't want to use it I don't know, you have to like wash these and line dry them, no softener. I don't know that you'd want to get some of this on it that would harden and then rub it on the polish, you know. So probably give you two. But this right here is to remove any scratches you would get in the acrylic. You just put it on, buff it out, using an included microfiber, so I can get you a second one for that. Scratches left and right, go up and down, just kind of fill in that scratch and buff it out. Now if you would scratch the polish, technically you use a Dremel with one of these pads on here, which is kind of just feels like it's a, I don't know, a fuzzy pad, and you use a buffing compound. You just spin it through that, and then you would just buff across it. You basically haze it. Kind of looks a little dirty. If you apply harder pressure, you'll knock that haze right off of it. But you can just use a microfiber and wipe it off. But so if you would scratch it, which one of the reasons I didn't use polished cases for so long is because whenever I'd get the donor watches in, there would be little hairline scratches on them just coming to me. And I would build a watch, and then by the time I was done building the watch, I'd have added more on there. And I'm like, how do I get these off here? And I wasn't using a Dremel back then. But it was just so tough for me to keep them pristine. And then I knew it was probably pretty tough for the consumer to keep them pristine because they're coming to me that way. So I spent the extra money and always bought the brushed cases. Typically the brushed cases didn't have a tension ring on the inside of the glass. And you can see it from here. You can see it sticking straight up and down right there at my fingertip all the way around. That adds an extra 100 meters of tension to this glass. So the brushed cases, which this doesn't come in a brushed, which is why if you see this case from me, it's always in bead blast, black, antique bronze, or brass, where we've Cerakoted it, where we've bead blasted it and coated it in a color versus keeping it polished. So you've seen this case before. It's just typically not in its original form. But the cases that I would get that are in the brushed versions, I would have to take the glass out. There's pretty much no salvaging it because it's an acrylic. You got to kind of like press it out. The more pressure you put on those things, you're going to put hairline cracks in it, and I'm going to have to use that on the inside of the case and make sure I'm not getting haze inside. It ends up becoming a thing. So I always have to buy replacement pieces of glass and those, and then add those. So every brushed watch you get from me, with the exception of a handful, have always had replacement glass put on them with this additional tension ring to give it that extra 100 meters of depth, which I know a lot of you guys aren't taking these in water, but that said, typically it costs me more to go that route. Going this route costs me less, but it's a lot more tedious to do and a lot more effort and work making sure that it stays as nice as possible. So that's a little backstory on why you don't see too much polished from me. And it's just because it's so difficult to maintain and so frustrating. Building the watch as it is tough. But then if you got to watch out for that as well, and I know on other platforms it's probably, once you know how to do it, you're probably fine. Thing is, I don't practice on that anymore just because I had so much frustration in the beginning. I went to something that was more of a brushed edition, because if you get a scratch in that, you can just brush it in and you'll never see it. But a little background on that. So there is your build, sir. Thank you for listening. If you are still here hanging out, listen to me yammer on about that. But that is your build. I appreciate you a ton. Steeler season is almost in full swing. Preseason's looking great. So we'll see how it goes this year. But that is your build, sir. Polished Steelers build. Thanks for watching, guys.